What's that? More rumors about the Big 12 poaching Florida State, Clemson, Miami, and Virginia Tech from the ACC. I think we can put these rumors to bed tonight.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Is the Big 12 about to take the ACC out back like Old Yeller? It just put us out of our misery. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. On this episode, we'll talk about Duke with Miami's future head coach on their bench, steamrolling Miami last night, but a key player getting injured. Not great timing for the Blue Devils. We'll talk about this new epidemic in college football with coaches canceling spring games left and right, and whether the juice is worth the squeeze there. But Kenton, we'll set the table on this, but I received, I watch his show on the regular. I was a little bit behind some of my Locked On Canes everydayers because I started to receive questions from Locked On listeners. Hey, like Drake Toll from Locked On Big 12, he's talking about the Big 12 is taking Miami over. They're going to take Florida State. They're going to take Clemson. They're going to take Virginia Tech. I mean, Kenton, are we going to have to merge shows with Drake here in a few months? What's going on?
Let me tell you something. Drake, Kenneth Toll, you're a good man. You're a good man. But you stop misleading these damn people with all this nonsense about the Big 12 being some savior for the ACC. Does he not realize, is it not in his head firmly that Coach Prime was the savior for the Big 12? Yeah. If Deion Sanders decides to skedaddle and scurry on elsewhere, oh boy. If you look at a majority of the highest viewed games from the Big 12, guess who was involved? Mr. Sanders.
Yeah, Colorado, almost every time.
And by Mr. Sanders, I mean all three of them, Shiloh, Shador, and Deion. So what am I saying by saying this? Drake, what the hell are you talking about? It would save college football for the Big 12 to take these teams off the ACC's end. I want to know from what angle. From what angle is this? If they're leaving the ACC because the ACC isn't making enough money, what under God's green earth tells you that the Big 12 would be a better split for them? The ACC has already created this success initiative to say, hey, if you win, we'll pay you more. The ACC has already made the concession. Notre Dame has to play one of these three schools to make sure, hey, they're going to have higher viewership because they'll have that NBC machine pushing them. So you tell me what under God's green earth can the Big 12 offer these schools that the ACC currently isn't? I would like to know, Drake. Inquiring minds would love to know, because it seems to me that you have less to offer and they will go to you for what? This is like Dono saying, you know what? I need a host that's less loud than Ken. I need a co-host that is not as passionate, that screams. I just need a guy that's a little bit more quiet. And then bring it on Mad Dog. It wouldn't make sense. And it's what? Oh, I'm not making enough money at the ACC, so I'm going to go to a conference that makes even less money and has even less incentive to bend the knee to our desires. Huh?
Yeah. I mean, okay, that's a great point, because even with like the equal revenue structure where Wake Forest and Clemson make the same revenue, which the ACC is going away from, but even in the equal revenue structure, ACC schools are making more than the Big 12. And then on top of that, you add in the Success Initiative, where if you win more, you make more, and the Brand Initiative, which is likely to pass this summer, where just for more people watching your games on TV, you make more. I know Florida State fans don't want to admit it. Well, maybe they do, because obviously they want the Big 10 or the SEC. They don't really want the Big 12, but whether they admit it or not, they're better off in the ACC than they would be in the Big 12. But before I run him over with the bus again, I will defend Drake here for a minute. Drake Toll, host of Locked On Big 12, who does a phenomenal job. I mean, he's got us talking about his show right now. So he didn't make this idea up. Okay. This idea actually was posed on War Chant message boards by a disgruntled Florida State fan who feels like anything other than the ACC. Like they'd probably rather be in the AAC than the ACC, some of these Florida State fans. So he suggested this idea. And of course, Drake, being Mr. Big 12, loves this idea because it would make the Big 12 a lot stronger that, hey, the Big 12 should poach, the biggest brands in the ACC. Well, at least three of them. For some reason, he threw Virginia Tech in there. Now, taking nothing away from Virginia Tech, but I would say UNC is a bigger brand than Virginia Tech. But he said, why does the Big 12, why don't they take Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and Virginia Tech, form, the Big 12, it would be a 20-team conference that with those brands added would be almost or essentially on par with the Big 10 and the SEC. And then you can now lobby for automatic bids. Maybe the SEC, the Big 10, and the Big 12 all get 4 automatic playoff bids. And, instead of the ACC and the Big 12 kind of treading water and stuck in quicksand, the Big 12 with those brands added could compete with the Power 2 and become a Power 3. So obviously anyone who, carries that Big 12 flag would like this idea. But then on the flip side of it, I know we don't talk a whole lot these days about the ACC adding more teams, although they did just add 3 schools a year ago. But wouldn't you say that the ACC, when you mentioned Deion Sanders is the biggest thing the Big 12 has going on right now, like when the biggest brands in the Big 12 are Kansas, Utah, Colorado with Deion Sanders, God forbid he leaves, and Arizona State just won their conference in football this past year. Wouldn't you say that the 3 biggest brands in the ACC are bigger than anything the Big 12 has going on right now? Why doesn't the ACC take over, TCU and Houston? Come on down. Why don't you join the ACC? You can have the TCU versus SMU conference rivalry every year. I like that idea.
Hey Baylor, you come on too. Baylor, come on down. Let's get all those religious schools from Texas on in the mix. Come on in here. We want the Methodists, we want the Christians, we want all of them. Let me tell you something. At the end of the day, I think what is a much more sensible option, which may hurt some of our schools, which may even hurt an NC State, is these 2 conferences getting together and saying, hey, we're carrying too much dead weight.
That's right.
Now, how about us, we get our top guys together, we work something out of that, and we let everything else fall where it may. Now, again, that's not going to happen because the money doesn't work out in that way. The TV deals don't work out in that way, where I don't know when the Big 12's TV deal is up, but I know that it's not
2031,
soon.
I think. I'll have to double check, but I think, or actually,
I'm
not sure.
Why is everything ending in 2031?
Well, no, I might be wrong because that's when the SEC and the Big 10, the Big 12, keep talking.
Yeah. No, you're good. But either way you cut it or slice it, this is a situation where, to me, what would be more sensible than anything is these conferences saying, hey, you bring your big dogs, we'll bring our big dogs, and we meet somewhere in the middle, as opposed to, well, us taking all of your biggest brands is how we save college football. What can you offer them? What can you offer them?
By the way, it is 2031. Google has spoken.
Ooh, everybody's TV deals ending in 2031. What is happening in 2031? What do all of these conferences know that we don't? Never mind. Anyway,
well, they know that asteroid is coming. You heard about the asteroid that's supposed to hit us? I think it might be 2032, but if the asteroid speeds up 2031, that could be the last dance here.
We better have a good time before it hits, because I'll tell you what, all of these conferences are very specifically set to do some realignment at 2031. But again, the thing that I look at as why this is nonsensical, again, if somebody was to say, hey, Ken, I love you to death, but I don't want no bald man. I'm going to give you some money to go to Turkey and get you a hair transplant. And then I buy a gym membership with it, and my biceps just end up like 40 inches. I didn't solve the problem. I did not address what I was supposed to address with what I was given. Florida State, Clemson, Miami leaving and going to the Big 12 does not address the crux of their problem with the ACC.
Right.
That's the whole deal here. So to ignore that and pretend, well, it'd be really nice if y'all all sent your best teams over here, and it'd be really nice if Megan Thee Stallion went on a date with me. But I live in the real world where it just hasn't happened yet.
You.
I'd be super happy for me too. I'd be super happy. Miss Pete, if you want to have your people call my people, never mind. We'll talk about that off air. But it's nice to live in this fantasy world. But in the words of a former Big 12 alum, they were in the Big 12 when he graduated. Now he's an SEC alum. Matthew McConaughey. It's a weasel. It's a wazoo. It's a fugazi. It's fugazi. It's fairy dust because this type of stuff ain't happening.
See, I thought you were going to say, if presented with this idea, Matthew McConaughey would just say, all right. Get it done.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Matthew may pretend to be high all the time. That man is about some money. He about the two types of green, the hash and the cash, okay?
That's right. And so that's fantasy land. In reality, we covered here a few weeks ago, ESPN exercised their option to lock in the ACC's TV rights until 2036. That's the one deal that doesn't expire in 2031. They got us locked in until 2036, not to mention, this has not been finalized yet, but there have been reports that indicate we may be nearing a settlement between the ACC, Clemson, and Florida State to drop the lawsuit. So whether you like it or not, till further notice, we're going to assume the ACC is going to be together for another 11 years. We're all in this together for another 11 years, assuming the asteroid doesn't get us first. Now, something that we see going around college football, and Kenton, you were telling me that NC State is going to do this as well. A lot of big-time programs canceling their spring games, right? Fans are not going to be able to go out there. You're not going to have, most spring games are televised these days. That's off for certain schools. Why? And is it worth it? We'll talk about that and more next. You want to keep it locked right here on Locked On ACC. Guys, I love getting all the I don't know why I had Kenton still on the screen. He's giggling. You know why he's giggling? Because Kenton is so excited about FanDuel.com and all the amazing action we're getting on all of these big games. Guys, it's almost March. And you know what happens in March? You've got NBA games going on, NHL. I've been all about betting on hockey this year. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three. I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is so easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out our other shows. Kenton Gibbs and Grayson Boone do a fantastic job on Locked On Wolfpack, covering everything NC State. I host Locked On Canes, talking everything Miami. We'll talk a little Miami, but kind of talk Miami basketball. They're awful this year, but they are, they did see their future head coach on the opposing team's bench last night. But in the meantime, Kenton, look, we've seen some high-profile programs, Nebraska, USC, I believe Ohio State. You were telling me NC State is going to do this as well, canceling their spring football games. They'll opt to do closed-door scrimmages or practices instead. They're just not going to open them to fans, not going to open them to television. One of the reasons we've heard coaches state for why they wouldn't do a spring game, I don't think this is the only reason, but this is what they like to say publicly, is they don't want to put free game film out there for other schools to scout their players and tamper when the transfer portal opens right after most teams' spring games. So that, Kenton, I don't think that's the only reason or even the main reason why a lot of schools would cancel a spring game, but that's something that's being thrown out there as the reason.
It's soft. It's terrible. That I don't care what your reason is. If you don't believe, hey, I can effectively do my job, increase the fan experience, and still keep my players, that seems like a skill issue, buddy. And the other thing about that, why do all of y'all think that y'all have players that are so good they'll be tampered with? Right. Why does every school believe that? Have you not seen some of y'all stink? You stink. I don't. How many players from 3-win teams are being poached? How many players from 4 or 5-win teams are? Everybody else is like, "Ooh, I need to get my hands on that guy. I need to get my hands on that guy." With all due respect, anybody who is poaching from Nebraska's second team, go talk to that lady. Go get on the gambling hotline. And I know what you're thinking. Kitten, that's not gambling. Yes, it is. You're betting that you will be able to feed your family based on a backup at Nebraska. That's the worst gamble you can take. And Donald has called me before, cigarette in mouth, 3 a.m, talking about he's got a really good beat on Japanese table tennis. I am trying to tell you all something right now.
I know you're joking, but I've literally bet on that before. It might have been Chinese. It was Chinese table tennis, but I have.
You get my point here, people. The reality of this thing is this. Some of y'all don't want to admit it. Some of these coaches refuse to admit it. My team stinks, and I think they're going to look bad in front of the world. And I don't want to look bad in front of the world. Just say, hey, my team kind of stinks right now. And I get it. You got to do the politician thing where a lot of being a head coach is being a politician and giving the very, what we're looking at where we are as a team right now, we don't really see the benefit of it. You know who does see the benefit of it? The fans. You know who does see the benefit of it? Some little kid who all their life they've wanted to play for your university, however long that's been. You know what I mean? Like 8, 9 years old. And they're like, we've come here every year to their spring game. And then all of a sudden, actually, we're good here. There's nothing to watch because, coach is scared of getting his players poached. Coach is trying to break in 2 new coordinators. They don't know who their quarterback is going to be, and they know all these guys can't throw the damn ball. They couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. We just can't do it. I don't care what you got going on. You should always have a spring game. Again, even though this game is being professionalized, there still needs to be certain aspects of the pageantry. And that is one of them that I'm a very strong believer that we need to keep.
Yeah, like you said, like canceling a spring game, it's a slap in the face to your fans. That event is meaningful to so many people. And I mean, I don't know of any program, maybe some do nowadays, but most programs like don't charge. Like you may have to like get your ticket online so they know how many people are coming, but it's usually a free event. Yeah. And spring games typically offer you access to get FaceTime with coaches and players. You can't get at a game. Like it's so special to the fans. Like I've been going to spring games at Miami long before I was in the media, and it's it hurts to me. And last year it ended up working out pretty well. Like Miami moved their spring game to a smaller venue, and some fans were even pissed about that. They were worried, will I be able to get in? Like they moved it farther south. They moved it on campus. So people from, the counties that are north of Miami-Dade County were worried it's going to be too far to get down there. So like even altering your spring game can upset your fans. Canceling your spring game altogether, I believe it's a slap in the face. Now, you talked about one of the other reasons, and I'm not saying like this probably isn't why Ohio State would cancel a spring game because their team is really good. But some programs, a reason why you might cancel a spring game is your team doesn't have a whole lot of depth that time of year, and you don't want to be embarrassed in public. And I get that, but you don't want to say that publicly for obvious reasons. And then I think another reason, and this debate is going out there, Kenton, as to why teams would cancel the spring game. So the spring game, it counts as one of your practices. I think there's a maximum of 15 practices you're allowed to do by NCAA rules during the spring. So I think some programs are deciding it's more valuable to us to do a closed door scrimmage so we can run all of our plays, right? Because if you're doing it in public, you're intentionally going to be vanilla, right? You're not going to show your whole playbook on TV for obvious reasons. So I think some programs are going to say, this 15th practice is more valuable if we do it in private. Again, they'll never admit that, but I also think that falls under the slap in the face category because you're cutting fans out of it for selfish reasons.
And now let's really dig into that particular selfish reason.
Yeah.
Your playbook is that limited to where, oh man, yeah, we've got we only run the Ohio concept out of this formation. Oh man, we cannot run smash out of any formation except mesh.
Yeah.
Mesh. If we don't have 2 tight ends on the field, how do we run mesh? Especially with a rail behind it. For those of you who don't know, those are actual passing concepts, a little bit of inside baseball, but either way you cut it or slice it, the reality is anything that you are running in a spring game, right? Even if your argument is, I need for everybody to be running at peak efficiency and we need to have the entire playbook installed. Number one, like you said, Donald, it's 14 practices. Your entire playbook rarely ever installed within 14 practices. But number two, let's just say for kicks and giggles, your whole deal is installed. There are no new wrinkles that will be added in. Everything is set after 14 practices. Does executing it one time in the spring before fall camp, might I add, the time where you actually, it's all fall, all the time. Nothing but you, your teammates, your coaches, nothing but meetings, practice, more meetings, live, practice, sleep, more. Guess what you're doing when you wake up tomorrow morning? Same damn thing. Meetings, practice, live, more. That's that time is not enough. The 14 practices before is not enough. You also need this one particular practice where you refuse to show it to the fit. Come on, man. Come on. Come on. In the words of the elders, save them lives for somebody who want to hear
it. I can't top that. I want to talk some hoops on the other side. So Duke demolished Miami last night, but there's a couple of extra details that I find very interesting about that. Louisville clinched a double bye in the ACC tournament. Pittsburgh lost again. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, check out Locked On College Basketball. Our very good friend Isaac Shade and Andy Patton, they do a fantastic job, and this is their time of year to shine, right? We're getting ready for conference tournaments. The big dance is coming up next month. You want to become an expert now. Don't wait like sometimes I have in the past where it's March. I better study up on, get my bracket ready. No, they're going to have you experts long before the tournament starts on Locked On College Basketball, available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. So Duke, as they did to Miami earlier this year, and they've done to a lot of teams, they essentially mercy ruled the Hurricanes in Miami last night. 97-60, the Blue Devils won. Now, first angle of this game, Kenton, is I know Duke fans got a scare last night because Tyrese Proctor, shortly after he scored his 1,000th career point, which is incredible, he suffered an injury. His knee got knocked against a Miami player. He left the game before halftime, did not return. Very important to, Duke's championship bid coming up next month. So everyone's wondering how Proctor is doing. Now, I will say, again, me watching the game on TV certainly doesn't make me a medical expert on his situation, but it looked to me like a knocked knee, slight hyperextension, probably a bruise, precaution to keep him out the rest of the game. It didn't look like one of those things where, oh my God, he's going to miss significant time. But again, that's my armchair doctor opinion. John Shire talked about Tyrese Proctor this morning on the radio. He said he's tough. He got hit on the leg. We've got to get him some imaging. Imaging would mean X-ray, MRI, CT, something like that. Get him some imaging, and then we'll go from there. So not exactly reassuring words one way or the other, but I have a feeling he'll be okay come ACC tournament time.
Yeah, the fact that Shire didn't say anything very declarative one way or the other, it's probably a good thing there. But even more important than that, it's the verbiage that he used there. He got knocked on the knee as opposed to Yeah, it was a non-contact, but we're kind of figuring it out because that's where you generally see those real dangerous ones. Or, oh man, he took a blow. He took a big blow.
Yeah.
Because that's when you're like, oh wait, what's happening here? As opposed to a very light, he got knocked on the knee. You know, it happens. Things like that tend to happen. But more important than anything else here, I really cannot emphasize enough how much health is very important into who goes where in terms of March. You know, a lot of people talk about NC State's run last year, and they forget that Houston team had Duke dead to rights until their point guard got hurt. Like that was a big part of what allowed Duke to win that game and get to the Elite Eight, where they faced off against NC State for the right to go to the Final Four. So you're looking at this situation and you're saying to yourself, hey, you have to have health down the stretch. And to me, it is more important to have that health than to, trot Proctor out there just to say, oh yeah, we won our tournament, or oh yeah, we broke the regular season record for most wins, most conference wins by an ACC team. None of that is more important than cutting down those nets at the end of the season.
Yeah. And another angle from the Duke Miami game, and it's probably more interesting than a 37-point blowout should be, but it's always compelling when you have the person who is believed to be the next head coach of Miami on the bench finishing out the season as assistant coach at Duke, and that's Jay Lucas. And that was another one. I was watching John Shire's post-game interview, and a reporter kind of very carefully asked him hey, season's not over, it's hypothetical, but people think Jay Lucas is heading to Miami. What can you say about that? And of course, he certainly didn't try to squash the rumors. It seems like this is actually happening, Kenton, and Shire, talked about how important Lucas has been as his right-hand man and how much they've been through together at Duke. So, he certainly, without actually saying it, kind of seemingly confirmed, yeah, Jay Lucas is on his way to Miami, as Miami is really, and I know Jay Lucas has no head coaching experience, but he's had some of the top assistant coaching jobs in college basketball, formerly at Kentucky, now, of course, at Duke. And he's one of the only non-Duke alums to get hired as a Duke assistant. They usually keep it in the family. They made an exception for Jay Lucas, and he is going to be the guy that seemingly will be tasked with trying to turn Miami's basketball program back around. Because, yeah, they were in the Final Four 2 years ago. Feels like a long time ago based on how they performed this season.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you're looking at a situation where, as the head coach, it's the old saying, right? Good leaders fear their underlings becoming leaders themselves. Great leaders expect it. Yeah. John Shire had to expect this the same way that Coach K expected Capel to get a head coaching job. The same way that many greats have these big, expansive coaching trees. I hate to talk about my Lions again, but Dan Campbell with both of his guys leaving and getting head coaching jobs. That's what you expect. When you have a season like Duke is having this year, people are going to come want to raid the war chest. You can't get the players. You're not. Cooper Flagg is going to be somebody's number one option in the NBA next year. Okay? Kyle Knippel is going to be somebody's three-point specialist in the NBA next year. You can't get the players, so what's the next best thing you can get? The guy who got the players. And then obviously you're not getting Shire, so the assistants are next in line. So, that is one of those things that, of course, Shire didn't deny it or anything like that, because coaches only do that real, oh, yeah, ho-hum, I don't know what's going on, I'm playing it coy, speak when it comes to themselves and their contract. And everybody else, they'll be a little honest. Oh, yeah, he's been great. He's been great, And if this is the end, and this is the end, but we've enjoyed them all every step of the way. But when it's their contract, a little different. A little different, but it is. I think that is a good hire for Miami, regardless.
Yeah, and I know, of course, Duke is the team that is expected to have by far the best chance to win a national title out of the ACC. Likely a number one seed. They should contend for that, but I don't want to downplay the seasons that Clemson and Louisville are both having. They've really. I mean, remember a couple weeks ago we were kind of debating, who's the second best team in the conference, third best. I mean, Clemson and Louisville have cemented themselves. They'll probably be, 2 out of the 4 teams along with Duke and maybe Wake Forest to make the NCAA tournament. And good for Louisville. They clinched a double bye in the ACC tournament with a 71-66 win against Virginia Tech on Tuesday night. And Louisville improves to 15-2 in the ACC, Kenton. So they're having a heck of a year as well.
What a difference a day makes, or a year in this case, because I mean, that to go from Kenny Payne to this it's one of those turnarounds that'll be talked about for years, not just in the ACC, but nationwide. If you're talking about how quickly can a coach turn a program around, complete 180. Last year you had guys not playing because they didn't have the right leggings, and a coach who was willing to admit that publicly. And now you are 15-2, clinching double buys in the conference tournament. So, this is a group that they have competed at an extremely high level all year. The backcourt play has been phenomenal. I mean, you look at the ability to distribute from their backcourt. You look at the fact that those guys are looking to make everybody else plays, looking to make everybody else better. And you say that's the old school guard, right? Now everybody is he's kind of a combo guard. He's kind of everybody's a combo guard now. Everybody's you can fill it up type of guy.
Yes, centers are combo guards now.
Exactly. And yet this Hepburn kid he's a throwback to what you saw in yesteryear in terms of point guard, where it's like, hey, he's looking to pass first. He's looking to feed everybody else. He's looking to set the table and say, everybody, dinner's ready. And so it's been very good to see that from that team.
Well, we will here on Locked On ACC. We will continue to defend our conference from the evil Big 12, who's trying to
keep your grubby hands off, Drake Toll. Keep your grubby hands off.
Well, we should reach out to him to do a crossover soon, and just the world, the asteroid can't come soon enough. The world they're not ready for all the awesomeness that another crossover with Drake Toll could create. So we will reach out to him. Thanks everyone for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch. Make sure to like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. So we'll talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked On ACC right here on the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.